All right. Welcome to the Leadership is Female podcast. Aubree Curtis and Liz Gray, who are co-heads of global brand consulting and social impact at CAA. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you, Emily. We're excited.
You know, this is my first double interview, like my first two guest interview. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Great.
That's
I like
awesome.
it.
We like being the first at
Exactly.
something.
Being the first anything is amazing. So you guys are breaking barriers here on the pod. And what I love is that you're co-heads of this business unit. So I first want to kick it to each of you to introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you do, and briefly how you got there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Good to be connected and talking, and appreciate certainly the time of your listeners as well. So my name's Aubree Curtis. I am a brand marketer. I'm a strategist and a fierce social impact warrior. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I, as you mentioned, co-lead this amazing team of about 250 people around the globe in helping our clients advance their interests in culture, creating meaning in culture through the lens of a brand, creating intersections and connections with consumers, people, through their passion for culture. And that includes obviously the world of sport, of entertainment, and multiple verticals, including impact, underneath that. So in terms of what we do day to day, we are overseeing this incredible business, and it has grown immensely in the past 3+ years since we've been running it. Liz and I share the co-head seat with two others, two gentlemen by the name of Seth Jacobs and Jeff Eccleston. And, we are a part of a bigger company that is the most incredible company that really is in the space of shaping and defining the zeitgeist, what people are talking about, listening to, thinking about, watching, where they're getting their entertainment, the sports teams that they're in love with. That's what our broader business does. And so we have an incredible and fortunate position to be able to use and leverage all of that work to provide the most incredible insight and access to our brand clients. And we can get into the impact side of things a little bit more later, but we have such an influential company that part of my mission as a marketer, as an executive, as a leader, is to make sure that the influence that we have as a company matches the impact that we have on the world. So that's why I've been at CAA for 21 years and believe it's an incredible place to have not just a job, but a career.
I love it. Thank you, Aubree. Liz, let's hear your story.
Great. Well, as Aubree said, I'm happy to be co-leading this exciting division with her and our two other partners. I have actually had, not quite as linear a path, but I think if I had to define myself, my passion has always really been about understanding the consumer and culture and where it's headed. So really looking at where tech innovation is meeting current cultural realities, and then, building brand strategy from that. And it's certainly the role that I've had the fortune of playing, whether it's starting off at ESPN or actually moving to CAA the first time, based on the fact that they bought a trend forecasting company that we worked with at ESPN. And then obviously our work today, as culture has sped up, that kind of work and understanding has become, more and more important. So excited to be here and part of the conversation today.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting how, Aubree, you've been there for 21 years. Liz, you had this diverse set of experiences that all sort of share one common theme that are now really impacting your work today. And there's so much that I'm curious about in your roles. And Aubree, I want to start with you. You've told me about your partnership with your colleague, Judy Ann, and of course with Liz, and how you divide and conquer, pick each other up when the other has a different focus. So how do you develop this dynamic, and what advice do you have for our listeners on how they can become better partners with their colleagues?
Yeah, well, I strive to be a good partner in all things. Hopefully my husband would say that I am on the domestic side of the partnership front. I think I happen to have been, and some of this is part of the reason I've been at CAA so long, I happen to have been incredibly fortunate to encounter, by luck mostly, and have the ability to work with some of the best people, I would say overall, men and women, the smartest and most driven individuals. And I think, by and large, people who have left the company have always come back and said, the people that work there are just the best of the best. They're incredible thinkers and doers and connectors. But in particular, I think, a handful of the women that I've had the fortune of working with, and two, you've mentioned obviously Liz here with me today, but also Judy Ann Williams have, really had profound shaping roles in my career. And I think, I would say I've never really felt like I've had a mentor in my career. And I think early days of my career, I was looking for that. But what I've found is that in some cases, you may not need that when you have partners and people that have come from different backgrounds, like, Liz shared, or have experiences in other places, like Judy came from another division of the company. And those things can shape how you see yourself and how you reflect on your own career. And so, I am a firm believer that the women in my career have helped me become who I am. And I don't think that I would be here or have the career I've had were it not for some of these, for Judy in particular. But now, Liz and I have been very, very closely, tightly working together for the past 3+ years. And I feel incredibly grateful on the professional front, but also just in terms of, my interaction with them as humans and their support of me and hopefully my support of them. So I guess that just scratches the surface of a little bit of your question. But I at one point said, I think I should write a book on partnership and leadership with women. And that, I always heard the anecdote that, once there were 3 women in a room, like that was critical mass, and that could, create change for women in C-suite or executive level roles. But I think, and I'm sure there's statistically reasons why they say that, but I think, partnership has been enough for me in effectuating change and driving my career and driving effectiveness in what we're doing in any room forward. So just really grateful for, the forces that they are as people in my professional career.
Well, I have to say, Aubree, that you attract what you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's no surprise that those smart, intelligent, best people in the room have been attracted to you, and you formed those amazing partnerships. And for Liz, before your role with CAA, you were Chief Mindset Officer at the Female Quotient. So 1, this is an interesting title and we want to hear more, but 2, can you talk about the advances that the FQ has made in achieving gender equality in the workplace?
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk about that. And so much of my work there ties into everything that Aubree just shared. And I do need to just comment, just because it ties into everything Aubree was talking about. One of the main, if not the main, reason that I am back at CAA is thanks to Aubree and Judy Ann, for that matter. And I think it is those relationships that you build and that trust that you build over the years. And it is those people that are speaking on your behalf in rooms that you're not in that are so meaningful. And I think that does come from building trust. And a lot of my work at the Female Quotient was started by a woman named Shelley Zallis, who I can't say enough wonderful things about. And it really came out of a need that she saw in the marketplace when she was going to events, whether that was CES or any other big conference, where she didn't feel like there was enough women there. And so she started the Female Quotient really to drive conversation about equity in the workplace. When I joined, and I had known Shelley for a long time because you know, my background has been mostly research. She had an entertainment research company that was also hugely successful. I went over as chief mindset officer, which was not a title that I chose. However, did make sense in that most of my role has always been about understanding people's mindset and how that is impacting culture. And in my role at the Female Quotient, although they focused a lot on workplace, I continued to focus on brands and their outward facing initiatives. So working with companies like Mattel on proving the business case for the genderless doll, doing the research and strategy around that, you know, projects that I was very, very passionate about and loved that we were starting to really develop metrics around, you know, how can we start to measure some of these things? So there's a GEM score now, the gender equality metrics. That was a lot of my work there. And at the time, really just forming collectives, mostly of women, but there were, you know, certainly male executives involved as well. It was the first time, at least that I was a part of, true collectives about talking about these issues of diversity and inclusion and advancing them forward. And truly at the time where I started to talk to Aubree and Judy Ann more, and certainly Vino and Paul and everyone within sports, it was an opportunity to have even more impact, just because I did recognize the power of not only brands to advance change, but certainly within what I felt was, you know, the best company to be at. So it was work that I'm certainly passionate about and can't speak highly enough of Shelley.
Yeah. And what does it mean to the both of you to be co-heads of global brand consulting and social impact? And how do you divide that leadership role, or do you, what does that landscape look like as you're leading 250 people around the globe?
Liz, do you want to take that one?
I'm pointing. No, you go first. I'll go second.
Well, I guess there's the what does it mean for me at sort of the root of who I am as a person, and then there's the question of what does leading that group of people mean for us as a leadership unit. And so I'll just start with first is first. 21 years at a company, I started at the bottom of the bottom. Like, I came into the company with just a little bit of work experience before, and, was answering phones, so I say, like Drake, I started at the bottom, now we're here. Right. Like, so it's just the realization of like such professional dreams to say you could start somewhere, answering somebody's phones and make it all the way to running the thing that, being a part of a leadership team that at a company that you've dreamed about, sitting in that chair and looking ahead of you and saying, how do I get to that next, mile marker? How do I keep myself, ahead and push myself more, and what is ahead, and do I want that, and do I want something else? And so it's, for me, the culmination of a 20 plus year dream to do this. And there have been iterations of what we do at this company before now. But I said when I got into this leadership seat, I know it's not mine forever, but while I'm here, like, I want this to be the group that I always wanted to work in, like that, that we had tried and failed in some cases with previous leadership to make. I want to accomplish that for the people that work for us. And then I guess just to answer the, what does it mean for the four of us and how do we divide our role? It's much like a good marriage, like you look at what your tasks are in front of you and say, who's got what and who's going to be where and how do we do this and what's the bigger vision for what we want to do with this group. And I would say that I think the four of us are all low ego, good people. And, we were an arranged marriage. We were not, we did not choose one another. So that's an interesting sort of, somebody will analyze that one day and say, is that a recipe for success? We hope so. We think so. We're doing, I think, a good job. But the role sort is dynamic. I think we all are aware of what one another like to do, what we're good at, and we try to be deferential when we need to be, but also be firm when we have to be. But it's a work in progress, like any good relationship with anyone else. And, I think on our good days, we keep in mind that our function and how we show up directly impacts and reflects on the culture of the group, how people feel about themselves and their own job. And so that keeps us in check, pretty well. Liz, I don't know if you want to expand.
No, I mean, well, I completely agree with everything that you shared. I think the four of us all understand that our job is to develop the strategy and growth of this global team. And there are a lot of things that feed into that. And we try and divide and conquer, whether it's, it's everything from obviously the operations. We started with the values and culture that we wanted to build, the brand, innovation, and all of those pieces are things that we're trying to divide up. And certainly, for me personally, I still have my pinch me moments because this role for me really is and has pushed me to take all of my experience over the years and really bring it together in a meaningful way. And there's been a lot of areas I had to push myself in, and I feel fortunate at this point in my career to still feel challenged and invigorated. And so it's been an exciting opportunity and one I'm proud to be sharing with Aubree.
Yeah, well, and the way that each of you answered the question is really the way that it makes it successful. You said low ego, good people, play to your strengths, and each of you just in your answers supporting the team versus the I is really astounding for the level of position and of impact that you hold. And I really hope that our listeners heard that and can see that as a leadership lesson in itself. So I love it. There had to be a few hurdles that you've overcame in your career to get to where you are. So I'm going to toss that question to each of you to share a hurdle that you've had to overcome that helped you build resilience and get to where you are today.
Well, Liz is my sage guide through a lot of my hurdles, so I'll let her start.
Well, and I don't even know if I am, but honestly, when I really thought about this question, for me, it truly has been imposter syndrome, my own imposter syndrome. And I don't know if I can say this. Well, Shelley, who I mentioned earlier, would always say, shut that bitch up in your head to every female. And I'm sure there are men that also suffer from it, but my biggest hurdle, I feel, might have been myself along the way. And now I make a very big effort. And Aubree, working with women like Aubree is a huge help to getting over that and reminding myself that I worked really hard to get here and that I deserve to be here. And I think getting comfortable, when I took over this role, where I came from, I used to always have plenty of time I'm an over preparer. And I had to learn that there are going to be times and things where we have to move quickly. And I'm going to have to rely on my experience to date to make big decisions. And so for me, it's been my own probably internal demons that have been my biggest hurdle.
I laughed and sort of head nodded because I literally wrote in all caps, just said, jotted down a few, imposter syndrome. I mean, I think at a company that values new perspectives, and I would say values youth to some extent, because like honestly, Hollywood does. But coming up on the entertainment side of the business, I was often put in rooms way ahead of me ever having the tenure or resume, frankly, to be put in those rooms. But that's, how the company runs. We work in teams. The older agents or executives bring on, younger folks to learn and to grow until they build their own book of business, that sort of thing. So I was often put in those rooms really early and sometimes was very intimidated by, who I was speaking to. And I remember it was like, in my 20s, like wishing for like few gray hairs or something, just so I could look a little, I got a round baby face and the whole thing, like, maybe look a little older so people would, take me seriously. And now that I have all the gray hairs, you're like, what were you doing? What were you thinking? But I agree with Liz. And I think unfortunately a common theme with women. And I wish, and I hope for my daughter, I can talk her out of that imposter syndrome in any space, especially ones that, like Liz said, like, we've earned, we know how to do this and we have good instincts. And, I think at the end of the day, we have the right intentions for our clients, for our business, for our people. So yeah, funny that we had the same answer.
Yeah, well, I think it's so common. And even for me, it comes and goes. Like there's moments where I have this unbelievable strength and confidence in some of the most difficult situations. And then in some of the easier situations, the imposter syndrome sinks in. It's like, it's so bizarre how it wavers. And you laid out some really good advice on, having some great women in your corner to support you and to put those mantras in your head, to remind yourself, like, you deserve this. You worked hard to get here, and it's your turn to show up and to shine. And there's been a lot of leadership lessons, no doubt, that have already been woven throughout this conversation. Is there one that you want to share specifically with the audience who are either leaders right now who need a reminder, or younger women in their career that are looking to get into a leadership role over the next several years?
I mean, I think that in the world of, business, leadership books and business discussions, lexicon is important. The language with how we describe, people and situations. And I think that leadership is talked about in such a singular way, as if there's like a monolith of like how you describe what a leader is. And one of the things when we took over running this business, we said we deliberately call ourselves management. And management is also really kind of a dirty word in business too, because it sounds not so fun and not so great. But we did not want to call ourselves necessarily the leaders of the group, because we don't think that that's ours to say we are. We want to be leaders because people see us as leaders. We want to be called someone's leader, someone's, boss or leader, because they feel that way about us. So we are managers or keepers of caretakers of this business. I would say that we tell our team that leadership is at every level. So don't think of it as a destination. Think of it as part of the journey, and finding leadership roles or small ways that you can take leadership within your current position. And whether that's just being more proactive than the next person on something, spending a little bit more time to be a learner and an expert on something, and showing up with that expertise, or, just caring more deeply about the issue or the people around you, or the challenge that you're facing at work. That's leadership. And so we really want our team to believe that and see that in themselves. And so, my leadership style is I want to give the best to other people and give them opportunities, and find ways to not center myself always in conversations or in opportunities, and to find the way. We always talk about sharing the shine. Judy Ann says that a lot. Share the shine. I think that's how I see it. It's not a singular thing. It's very intersectional at different parts of your career.
Absolutely. I agree, Aubree. And when I look back at my career, a couple of things that I wish I had done sooner, and I think that Aubree and I and our partners, Jeff and Seth, spent a lot of time focused on developing in our young people, is earlier on understanding what are my strengths. I think I spent a lot of years trying to change things that I didn't have, rather than leaning into areas where I was strong and learning how to translate those strengths into the current task ahead of me. So that's one thing that I certainly focus on. I think understanding what success looks like. I think we often don't have enough conversations with those that we're reporting to understand what is going to get me to the next level. What does success look like? Because I could go focus on something that really isn't going to have, bigger impact on my career. And I think those are the two main things. And then the last thing is really understanding the difference between mentor and sponsors. I really think you'll have a lot of mentors in your career and your personal life. But really understanding who are those people, like I mentioned Aubree earlier, speaking up on my behalf in rooms I'm not in. I think it's important to identify those people and be sharing what you're doing, the value you're bringing. So those would be 3 big takeaways for me.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And I love that you brought up mentors versus sponsors. And often I think we're really very focused, and maybe the conversation is just so focused on mentorship and finding that perfect person to be your North Star. But really thinking about sponsors, that's probably going to make a larger impact in your career. Like, who's mentioning your name when you're not there? Who is wanting to make those introductions for you? And that's a plural, sponsors. So the exponential impact of those people that are your champions is going to make an incredible impact. So you guys are global partnerships. What are the 3 keys to managing global operations?
Have a good airline status, or you're going to get one very quickly. No, I mean, I think we inherited a business that was international. I don't think it was necessarily global, and kind of understanding the distinction of those two things. And then also, trying to think about and how to build kind of a universal culture. Some of the things that Liz mentioned are values, like those things are translatable and transferable around the world. Clients are people and humans in any country that they come from, but certainly there's cultural nuances that you need to be comfortable learning and taking a step back and working with our team in those markets to understand where we might be seeing something through a different lens. I think that that's a really important part of it. And just really that, the world is huge, but it continues to feel smaller. The world of sports and entertainment in particular, you look at the world of sports and sort of the globality of owners and leagues and, owners from different countries, buying into leagues or teams in countries not of their origin, to leagues that are transferring the game or their values around the globe. I can't remember a time where, sports has felt more global and more tightly connected globally. And obviously the business of entertainment in some cases has always been a very global business, an export business, but now we see a lot more importing of entertainment formats and concepts and, around the globe as well. So I think we try to find kind of what are universal truths. How do we operate our business with a similar set of values, but also understanding that we need to be learners and center the people that understand the cultural nuances and understand where there might be differences and where we might, as US-based leaders, need to really defer and put the power in our people's hands. So those are a few things that I think have been successful for us as we've been leading a more global enterprise.
Yeah, I completely agree and don't have too much to add except to say, to Aubree's point, early on, we leveraged a lot of tech to make sure that the connectivity and collaboration was happening very seamlessly. I think at the end of the day, we are always looking to be as fluid as the world in which the brands we're servicing are existing. And so a lot of the decisions we make on how we are functioning as a team is just wanting to be reflective of the world that we know we have to build a strategy for on behalf of our clients.
So how much do you think your personal confidence comes into play to get the job done? We've talked on one end of the spectrum of imposter syndrome, but completely opposite of that is this confidence that you have to have in your work and your ability to get the job done. So how much has that played into getting you to where you are today?
I think a lot. And I don't always think it has to be, necessarily an overt confidence as much as I do think you can set early on in your career certain goals of how you're going to show up, how you're going to engage, how you're going to lean on your partners. And then for me personally, preparation is key to confidence. And something that is always, you will rarely see me show up for something not having prepared. And I think it's important. And for me, it comes from, Aubree pointed out earlier, to become an expert in something, make it your job to understand what what you're trying to achieve and how best to get there. There are certainly those days though, where you feel like you're faking it. And I think that's when you can lean on those support systems that you have in place, which I think are essential, especially in this business.
Yeah, I love all that. I'll just add that I think the brilliance of the place in which we work is that you pointed out earlier, Emily, like the pronoun we versus I. We are taught that from the time you join, that you don't want to be on the end of a bad I email. If something goes wrong, it's much easier to say we did that, we failed in that regard, or we won in that regard. And we try to tell our people that when you are part of a we, it's a collective win or failure, and think that inspires confidence to some extent. And then really it's okay to say I don't know. And if you have kind of the team behind you and the ability to say I don't know, then then you can walk in there into any room and feel like I can navigate my way through this. Because the worst that's going to happen is we say I don't know. And guess what? The place we work, we've got 3,000 colleagues who probably have the answer. So I don't know, and I'm willing to go get it and find the person that I know will be able to help you. And so I think that inspires a lot of confidence as well, at least for our people and certainly for me over the years.
Yeah, Liz, I think you touched a little bit on painting that picture of your future self and then becoming that woman, setting those goals early in your career on how you wanted to show up and then working into becoming that person. And then Aubree, you really represented the no I in team, saying like you can maintain your confidence knowing that you don't have to know it all and have it all. You can lean on your teammates for support and feel confident that they will come to, help you get the win. So I love that. I think that represents just the full spectrum of finding confidence and success in the workplace. And speaking of the workplace, you guys are headquartered in NYC. So tell us where in the world you are today and kind of what life looks like for you. You're also both mothers, and just curious about your busy lives and what you're doing each day.
Well, I always say to Liz, she's going to get mad at me. I always like, Liz, you need to lead with the fact that you are a mom of 5 kids, because I just don't know how you can get dressed in the morning and get out the door. I'm literally in awe of her. I only have 2. I live in suburban New Jersey, so just outside of the city. But yeah, I think that question is best directed at Liz of what's life like? Because I get the stories from the Gray household and they're entertaining.
Well, which is exactly why I don't lead with I have 5 kids, because I think I might make people nervous, because I'm not one of those moms of 5 that is super it's funny. Some of the strengths I bring to work, I don't necessarily bring to my home life, but as you said, Aubree and I are based in the city, but I live out actually on Long Island in a little beach town called Point Lookout. And for me, it really is, it's a quiet, sleepy little beach town. So for me, the perfect antidote to kind of a long day in the city. And I think we probably, all 3 of us, get asked a lot about balance, which is never something that I think is achievable. But I do think I've gotten better over the years of just knowing when I need to lean into my career, my role, and when my family needs to, I need to lean in there. Of course, your family, your personal life always has to be a priority. But I will say what has been incredible for me in this partnership with Aubree is the ability to show up as my whole self. And I don't think I've had that my entire career, whether that was self-inflicted or not. But it is something that I'm really embracing today, where showing up as your whole self is crucial. And I know much easier said, much easier for just to say I'm a mom than some other things that people might not be bringing to work. But I think it's crucial to creativity, to being able to accomplish the things that you want to in both your personal and professional life.
Plus, I think being a mom of any number of children automatically makes you like a superhero, because you don't realize how much you can do and how much your world can expand until you expand your family. And I love that you 2 are, doing it all, so to speak, and doing it all on your terms, showing up authentically as your whole self, and really just being great leaders in this industry. And I'm grateful to both of you. And I want to wrap this up with the final 4 questions, quick hitters. We'll do Aubree and Liz in the order. So Aubree, you got to go first on every answer, and then kick it to Liz, and then I'll ask the next question. So what is your top piece of advice for women today to level up tomorrow? What do we do today?
Find your crew. find your partner, find your crew, find your supporters, as evidenced by what we spoke about today. You got to have your backer and your publicist and your cheerleader, and those will be the key to everything. So find that crew early, keep them tight, stay connected to them, and continue to build your network in a way that, to Liz's point, fills you up professionally, but also allows you to show up as who you are.
I love that. I'll just add to it, to read, listen, watch. I also think lift as you climb, because that's a big part of paying it forward and what will fill you up, seeing others, behind you succeed.
Where are you each traveling to next?
This is a good week to ask us this, spring break week. I'm heading to Miami tomorrow. It's the inaugural race of the NCL, which is the National Cycling League, is a league that we've been supporting since it started. And the premise on which it's building is around men and women's pay equity. And they are teams of professional men and women racing together as a team, where the women are paid the same as the men. So that's their first race down in Miami Saturday. I'm excited to go, and my kids are coming along, so they get to see what that looks like too.
That is awesome. I love that. My next trip will be LA for World Congress of Sports. So not next week, the week after. I'll have some personal travel in there, but next work one is LA.
And what is each of your pump up songs? If you've got to get hyped up, what are you playing?
Anything but Real Love by Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige just oozes the confident, just get it done, know yourself kind of energy and spirit. I've loved her since way back in the day, and Real Love is a song that just gets me up out of my seat.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to go Respect. I have a lot, and it really depends on my mood and where I am mentally, but I'm going to go with Respect. Aretha Franklin, because we've earned it, ladies.
And finally, what is your favorite quote?
Oh, see, this is so hard for me because I have so many pinned to my Pinterest board or my Instagram. I don't know that I have a favorite quote. And I know this is not the answer you want. There's so much great wisdom out there. I'm gonna defer on this one. I was looking for quotes, some helping my daughter with something at school, and they're quotes about lifelong learning and staying a learner. I think a lot of those are really inspiring. A lot of marketing messages, just do it. No, you're worth it. Those kinds of things, those stick in my head. I think as brand marketers, quotes just fill up your brain. So Liz, I'm interested in you.
I agree. I have a lot, but I'll give two since Ob's deferred. One of them, which I always use personally and professionally, is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So go for it. And then the second one actually comes from someone that we used to work with. The only reason I saw the quote is because Aubree nicely forwarded me the email, but it stuck out because it said, don't manage your expectations. And I think that everyone should be applying that to themselves. Don't manage your expectations about yourself, because I guarantee you can go farther than you realize.
See, I'm forwarding quotes.
Forwarding quotes.
Aubree, I think we initially bonded over our love of quotes, because they're literally plastered all over, and it's why it's the question on this podcast, because everyone, even depending on the day, people will bring a different perspective and remind you of something that can help lead you forward. So you both have done that today. You showed up as the incredible female leaders that you are. Thank you so much for sharing your voice and your wisdom on the Leadership is Female podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.